so loud, 'cause you are an
I always painted. Like, I've never not painted, I've never not drawn. Like, when I was a little boy in Romania, like, I always drew pictures. I love drawing animals, like kings of Romania and all sorts of different things like that, saints from churches and different things. And when I moved to America, we always, in my family, like, we were always like very Romanian and kept it a community. So I always drew the same, in a similar pattern, the same kind of thing. So I always just kind of grew up drawing and painting, except I adapted to here and drew other stuff too in the meantime, and sort of developed my talent or whatever, and my parents were very amazing. Like, they always pushed me to go to arts events, different things, and like my dad would take me to comic book conventions because I liked comic books when I was little, and he'd take me to Pittsburgh sometimes, and I got to meet like Stan Lee before, and like he looked at my paintings, and he's the guy that created Spider-Man, and like I loved Spider-Man when I was like 12 or 13, and so I got to meet him, and he liked it, and he signed my comics, and it was so cool. Like, for a little kid, that was amazing, So that's how I kind of got encouraged to paint. And also all our friends, like our family friends, and my mom, like, really, they always got me all the stuff I've ever wanted, like, for art. There was never like a question of, you know what I mean, like how some little kids just want this toy, that toy, that toy. I just wanted art stuff. My mom always got me whatever I wanted, or they gave me money. Okay, go buy this, go do that. So it was very nice. So it was pretty cool. I would say I was in Europe. I mean, I always wanted to do this. It was never, how should I say, like a moment where I said, this is it, this is all I'm gonna do. But there was a day, I was in Istanbul, in St. Sophia, in Hagia Sophia, in Old Constantinople, and I'm standing in front of the Pantocrator, this huge icon of Christ. It's in mosaics. And when I stood in front of that mosaic, I was like, wow, this is what I want to make. Like, this is art, this is beautiful, you know what I mean? And it conveyed such power and glory, and it was just different than when you see like a little still life of flowers, or a little, I mean, they're beautiful too, but it just seemed like there was something more important, or of value, or it just expressed like power in that sense. Like, it was just magic, something about it. So that was really the day, or the point where I said, this is what I want to do. I want to give this feeling to other people through my art, So that was kind of important for me, visiting Turkey. So it was very nice. When I was a little kid, I grew up in a little town in Transylvania. It was called Arpașul de Jos. And I grew up in Arpaș, and I was very, very free. Like, over there, there were about 200-300 homes in the whole village, and it was very beautiful. There were mountains, like, up around the village. There was this huge river, and I was very, very free to go anywhere I wanted. My parents never, scolded me, like, don't cross the street, don't do this, don't do that, And that was one of the very nice things about growing up there as a child, because I could run around with all the kids in the neighborhood till it got night out or whatever, and do what I want, and it was nice. But when we moved to America, it was way different, because you come here and you don't speak English, you don't know anyone, you don't know anything. We moved to Alliance, Ohio, and since we didn't really know how the society works and how everything works, it's like everybody's like, you can't leave the porch, you stay here, don't talk to them, oh my God, I never heard even something like someone saying, don't talk to strangers or whatever. I didn't know what strangers were, because everyone in my village knew who I was. So if I was bad on the street, they'd pick me up by my ear and take me home with my dad, So it was a little different. Over here, nobody knows, nobody cares, and you don't let little kids just run around loose. But it's a different environment, and I think that the lifestyle of the people in Europe, as you know, being from Italy, is much more different than here. Here, I think it just conformed to what society made here, like how it is. Just, you can't do the same things we did, and especially as kids. And there are more dangers here. There are more things that you have to worry about as a parent than in a little village in Europe. So that was one thing that changed me in a sense. And because I fell into this environment, instead of being outside and doing all these things, I was inside painting or drawing, which in a way it helped because I'd come home from school, so I didn't know what baseball was, I didn't know what football was, so I'd go home and draw and paint and do my things, so that's how I learned, you know. It was a process though, so yeah. As an artist, I think being home in Europe, I had only one influence in my artwork, and that was Byzantine art. Romania was communist at the time when I grew up, and like I said before, the museums were closed. The ones that were really open had, you know, this neo-Soviet art and all these things, and I remember, you know, seeing some of this work, but to me it was very rigid, it was very cold. Yes, it conveyed some sort of power, but it wasn't the same kind that I would relate to the Pantocrator in Istanbul. It was just different, like there was something inhuman about that type of artwork, so I was never really attracted to it. What really attracted me was going to churches in the villages, and all the churches were painted in beautiful mosaics or beautiful frescoes from the 14th century, 12th century, and by my house we used to have a little chapel built in the 1400s by the King of Romania. So when I was like, I'd go in there and play, and that was like my little secret hiding spot as a kid, you know. So that's what really influenced me. There's a love when you look in an icon, in the face of Mary, in an icon, in the eyes. There's a certain love and kindness and tenderness that you don't get in most paintings. It doesn't. It's not really even a painting. It's a vision. It's a window into heaven, as they say in the East, and that's what really affected me. And then when I came to the United States, then I learned about Picasso and Van Gogh and everybody else that we know of today in contemporary art, of course, and it doesn't have that warmth. It doesn't have that. It has beauty beyond compare, but that warmth that you get in the eyes of the Theotokos, you don't see it in a Picasso. It just doesn't exist. So not to me. Everybody sees it differently though. But I love Picasso, you know, so. But I like Modigliani even better, so I like him more. New York is actually a very positive influence on an artist. For me personally, being able to go to all the galleries and being able to go to all the museums here all the time is very good on my art, in the sense that it opens your eyes to artists today. What are artists really doing today? Living in this moment, you know, because if you're not here, if you're not around this environment, it's a little tough looking at magazines or different things or books and, you know, figuring out what are people making today. Not that I want to make what people necessarily are making. I don't care. I have different influences in my art, yes, I agree, but they're not necessarily from today. And most people, when they look at my painting, they kind of suspect I'm 100 years old sometimes, but that's not. I think art is eternal to me. Once you make something and it's beautiful, like, and yes, some very ugly art transpires beauty. So it just depends what you feel when you see something, like. And to me, being here in New York really helps relating to the moment. So that's probably the best thing. But so far, since I've been here, I don't think New York has changed my art. I think it's changed the way I look at contemporary art. Well, I think, like I said, it goes back to my childhood, and spirituality and religion was always very important in my family. From my grandmother to my parents and everybody, we always went to church. As a little kid, I was always an altar boy, and I loved being in there, like, when no one was in there, just looking at all the paintings, all the icons, and just being alone. Like, you feel a closeness to God when you're just by yourself in church that I can't really explain, and especially in the sanctuary, in the altar. So that to me was always something very big in my art that I tried to transpire, and it just stuck. Like, it's something that's in my soul that I can't really dismiss when I create. You know, even if I paint a beautiful woman or something like that, I always try to maintain something powerful, something meaningful about it, or it does have a, how should I put it, like a mysteriousness to it. And I think that that's what iconography is too. It's the mystery of the unknown, of the other world, of other things that are unseen, the seen and the unseen. So